möchte jeder immer seine Notes selber taken.
This meeting is being recorded.
Wir haben es auch schon zusammen öfter jetzt gemacht. Also wenn wir dann zu dritt sind, verspreche ich dir, dann nächstes Mal sind wir zusammen. Ich lasse dich mal rein, ja?
Ja, super.
Perfekt. Hast du Fragen, ne? Auch konkret schon. Also wir können einfach, ist auch mein erster Call, von daher lass gern 50-50 Pinpoint.
Ja, ich würde
Pinpoint.
schon auch Pitch einfach machen lassen, ne? Weil ich,
Ja,
oder?
gern.
Ja.
Ja.
Hey,
Hey.
how's it going?
What's up? Pretty
Thank
good,
you.
pretty good, pretty good.
Nice,
Thanks for
nice.
thanks for taking the call, first of all. So spontaneous and quickly, and as you can see, there's also a quick turnover on our side. Um, I think I'm privileged enough that Max met you quite recently, and then
Yeah,
was
yeah, we
able
had
to
a
get me an intro.
coffee. Yeah. Nice.
How was it? What did you think of him?
Yeah, a very smart guy, and I think, yeah, I mean, he's starting a very interesting business at VT. We really notice how complex and expensive inference is. So yeah, somebody that's kind of working on those things is that's super interesting. And I think he raised the biggest pre-seed I've ever heard about. So that's also very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, might give you some confidence because he, among others, also rated from us. So not sure
Nice.
what he told you about us, but I'm happy to provide more context in ASAP. As you can see, I also brought my colleague Jessica
Nice
on
to
the
meet
call
you.
simply because we want to keep the pace and move quickly. I understood you already have lead investor. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, correct. Yeah.
Cool. We can also touch on that later on, but generally that's no problem, as already stated in my message. We are also fine in being the follower, depending obviously on the overall round setup. But to give you more context, I think it's smart enough to give you a brief info from our side to tell you a little bit about my person, Jessica, about herself, and then about 10x, how we can potentially add value to your journey. And then we would like to obviously also hear the same thing from you. Please also feel free to go into detail, especially about your person. It's a pre-seed round, so we invest in the end into people. So happy to, or very curious actually, to hear about your personal background, how you got to who you are today and what you're founding, and then dive deeper into Schematik, if that's fine for you.
That's perfect. Let's go. Yeah.
Magnificent. Yeah, quickly on my side, business and finance background in Germany and the US. Already had some entrepreneurial experiences during uni, but always felt I have a second passion for diplomacy, for international security, how things are related in that field. So I shifted careers, worked for a while in political consulting, mainly for NATO and a couple of defense ministries in Europe, and then said, okay, I want to build up on that academically. Studied another master's in diplomacy in Tel Aviv after living in the US and UK, and then dived back, or kind of like circled back to tech and startups in Tel Aviv, joined an early stage fund there, did my first steps in venture, and came back to Germany a little bit more than 3 years ago. In fact, to join 10x Founders where I'm now.
Nice.
And yeah, Jessica's also happy. Maybe you can speak more about our fund concept because it's quite unique in Europe.
Absolutely. Happy to. Yeah, first, maybe a few words on my side, from my side as well. Very nice to meet you, Sam. Started off my career at Siemens, was actually at Siemens Management Consulting for a while. Did the classical projects, but was also a kind of COO for a year for a mid-sized company that we integrated into Siemens, was a wind turbine manufacturer. Super interesting time. Then built up N47, which is the single LP fund of Siemens. And once I was done with consulting, I moved over to N47 and built up the go-to-market team. So they have a separate team that does sales for the portfolio. So they really generate revenue by working specifically with enterprise customers. Did that for a while and then moved over to the investment team. So covered Europe. We only did B2B tech investing, Series ABC. And there are, lots of industrial tech, manufacturing, supply chain tech, robotics, so the classical Siemens topics, obviously also as well, not in a strategic way, but purely financially driven. And yeah, 2 years ago now, almost more than 2 years ago already, I joined 10x Founders. I'm a partner here with the fund. I still, enjoy the same topics as I did before also invest in a company beginning of the year called Kirill. I don't know if you know them, but from what I read in your deck, it sounded similar only in the sense that what they're doing is for structural design, so
Yeah.
for hardware design. So was super keen, obviously, to learn a bit more about what you guys are doing. And yeah, that's maybe a good overlay to 10x founders and what we like in general as a fund. As you might have seen, we're a generalist fund, but definitely with a tendency for deep tech and B2B tech. So it's getting more deeper techier the more we do, and especially in Fund 2, we have
Nice.
a lot of robotics investments, and as I said, with Kuro also in the manufacturing space. So very excited about that. And from our history, we're more of an unusual fund in the sense that we really started more off as a angel conglomerate than a traditional fund. We have 6 founding partners that have all been founders before. Already 20 years ago, they started founding companies like IDNOW, Mendeley, Enmark, over 10 companies, and whatever they got out of their businesses, they gave back to the ecosystem. So they've been really part of the European startup ecosystem for decades now, and did very well with their investing. So a couple of years back, there was just a lot of interest to kind of join what they were doing, and also the idea to make it more professional and institutionalized. So we set up 10x Founders in 2021. We have over 200 individual LPs in that fund. So it's all like business angels and entrepreneurs, people that really have walked in the shoes and want to give back to the founders. And it's all about, building that magic of many between our LP base, but also the portfolio. So we now have over almost 90 portfolio companies over Fund 1 and Fund 2. Obviously connecting them as much as possible here in Europe, but also in the US. About 30% of the portfolio is located there. And as Julia mentioned before, we can lead and co-lead, but we're super happy with doing follow-up checks. They are usually between 500K and 1.5 million, just to set the frame a little bit for the conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, good to meet you both and to learn more about the fund. Yeah, I guess maybe I can just briefly talk a little bit about myself. Always been a huge computer nerd. Tried to start a lot of companies when I finished high school 12, 13 years ago, but those all didn't work out. I realized I had to learn a lot. So I tried to do that here in Europe, but I also moved to the US at a certain point because I noticed that at the time, at least, I didn't really get the type of opportunities to learn that I needed. There I worked at a company called Airtime, which was founded by, I don't know if you know Sean Parker, the guy who was the first president of
Oh, yeah.
Facebook. So he built a new social app. And the app completely flopped, but I think for me, it gave me a lot of exposure to people that had come from Google, Microsoft, those types of companies. Really taught me a lot about tech, but also it taught me about like product and product management, which I didn't really know that was a role before. So I moved back here to join WeTransfer, the file sharing thing. It was kind of their first project hire and helped them grow from like 30 people to about 300 people when I left. And yeah, that company eventually got acquired by Bending Spoons, which is not my ideal exit, but I think it was a good learning ground for me. Afterwards, I moved over to Veet. Veet is online video editing and AI video platform, and I joined Veet very early. I think I was one of the first 10 people. We were doing 2 million ARR, but we had not raised anything yet. After which, we raised with Sequoia. But yeah, I led product there, growth, design, research, all of those functions since I've been there for the past 5 years. Grew the company from about 2 million to 60 million in revenue. And yeah, now I'm kind of spreading my wings. So I resigned last week.
Congrats.
Basically, thanks. Yeah, what happened here was like, I was trying to figure out what do I want to do next. And for the last year, I've been doing a lot of hardware and robotic stuff. I believe that the next frontier, the next set of problems is going to be in that space. And I wanted to be part of that. But what I also noticed as I was doing that was that it was so hard. Like my mom can make a website now with Lovable, and I have a technical background, and I still kind of struggle to build these things. So I kind of realized like, hey, actually, I need to do something different here. I need to, I wanted to kind of build a tool for myself to help me build my weekend projects. And I did that. And that was kind of the first version of Schematik. And what was so interesting was that I was using it, and I was getting that kind of like magical feeling that you do something on your computer and something happens in the physical space, which is just really fascinating. I had that when I 3D printed something for the first time, and I really had like a wow moment. And at that moment, I was like, okay, this might be a company. Then I started talking to, people in the industry. So not just, hobbyists and makers like me, but really people that work at Tesla, Siemens, those types of people, trying to figure out if there was B2B potential. Uh, Figured out that there was. So that was very interesting. And then at a certain point, I made a video about it. Because of Veet, I know how to make a good video. I've been doing that for years, and I knew the video would be good, but I didn't know it would blow up this much. So I think on Twitter, it got like 300,000 views, and that's when things started moving really, really fast. So yeah, my inbox flooded, and with people that used the product, but also with people that wanted to, partner up. So yeah, basically started racing because normally I would have waited till I found a co-founder, but I really wanted to seize the moment and also de-risk the business for a potential co-founder. So that's where I am today. I found a lead. So that's Lightspeed, confidentially, but hope I can trust you guys there. We raised 3.5 to 4 based on like whether there's going to be somebody joining in. Like yourself, I guess, on a 20 mil post money valuation. There's a little bit of room potentially. We'll see, because I also want to get a few angels on board from the robotics and manufacturing kind of industry. That's where I am today. I'm
Cool.
hoping to kind of close all of this, not necessarily like close the round because I think legally that takes a little bit longer, but like find the right partners in the next few days. Yeah.
Amazing. First of all, congratulations. I think Lightspeed is also a great partner.
Thank you.
Who's the deal team at Lightspeed? Is it Alex?
No, and Antoine. I really liked Alex as well, but
Mhm.
Antoine I've had a relationship with for a very long time. So, you know, when this race started, I was like, okay, I'd rather work with somebody that I've known for a while, as if we're going to
Sure.
be working together for the next 10 years. Alex came to Amsterdam with Antoine when we discussed the deal. Really liked him as well, and he just introduced me to the founder of Robco, who is like a big hero of mine. So yeah,
Oh,
I
man.
feel a bit starstruck. Yeah. Hope to
Yeah.
get him on the angel list as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, if you want to have another anchor in Munich, where we are based, by the way, so with
Yeah.
Roman, obviously also doors are open in our office, so step by.
Nice.
And we have a good relationship
Nice.
with Alex, know him well. So yeah, that's cool. Okay, congrats.
Awesome. Yeah, Alex is great. And I think, yeah, Munich definitely is like the manufacturing robotics hub in Europe. So I'm really definitely coming down sometime soon. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good.
Cool.
And we already made 3 robotics investments this year alone, so you can also happy to meet some of our robotics founders and
Nice.
exchange ideas on that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Super
Cool.
cool. Yeah.
To set the stage maybe a little bit, also given we have 16 minutes left, I can run over a few minutes if you don't mind, but just in case.
I can't, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so we do it in a second conversation, but maybe to set the stage, what I'd be interested in, please help us a little bit on that. In software development, I mean, it obviously works, right? And there's so many proof points in that. What would you say is crucially different when it's about hardware development that you are working on?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like, first of all, hardware is a very multifaceted problem. So code is actually kind of simple. You just generate words and put them in the right
Right.
order. With hardware, you have, which parts do you need for the project, and then with those parts you actually need to make sure that they all work together, and if you want to do a good project they need to work together really well. By that I mean that they work together with the same microcontrollers, they use the same voltage architecture, a couple of other things that are really important there. So that's like problem number one. Then problem number two is, if we have all the parts, how do we actually wire this up in a way that is efficient? And problem number three is then writing the code knowing on which pin which item is. So if I want to light up an LED, I need to make sure that it is connected to pin number 17 or whatever. So in my system, I try to, kind of break those phases up and make them work really well together. Before I built Schematik, I actually just started using ChatGPT and other products to do some of these electronics with. And yeah, one time actually something blew up, and that was when I realized, okay, I need to be a bit more careful and build a more specific system for this. I think there's also one of the challenges further down the line is like AI doesn't really understand electricity yet, and that's something that I'm trying to kind of work on, so that it can simulate and test things before you start building, so you don't burn your hands, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been one of my main questions. Like from the schematics, just from how it looks like, how do you also take into consideration the functional requirements and how it works in real life? How do you bring that together?
Yeah, so I think right now, it's quite simple. So you can just kind of prompt it and say what you need. Over time, I think there needs to be a lot more either follow-up questions or kind of like more comprehensive tooling. So for example, right now, if you want to make like a robot that drives around, Schematic doesn't know if you want to mount something on top of the robot, what weight it should carry, what terrain it should use, etc. And it also doesn't help you design, for example, the encasing for whatever use case you need. So the real answer is right now it's just super simple and it will work for very simple devices. But if you want to build something a bit more ambitious, I think we still have a little bit of work to do. Yeah.
But you want to keep on focusing on the electronics part of it or go broader than that?
I think the electronics part is quite a big area, and I think already there I can provide tons and tons of value without, for example, touching, making 3D models and figuring that out. I think maybe eventually I want to go into that space. I don't know, but there are so many specific challenges to that as well that I wonder if if it won't like yeah, reduce the focus. And I want to make sure that within this electronics area I can actually be very differentiating.
And how do you plan to set up the team? As you said, you're still by yourself, like co-founder, you didn't really have time to look for one. Is that still on your is that still on your timeline, or who do you need next to actually build a quite sophisticated tool like the one you just explained?
Yeah. So ideally I would have somebody right now, either a co-founder or founding engineer, but that's like top priority. So you're like among the last calls with investors that I'm gonna do. I think after that it's really gonna be all in on hiring. I want to find somebody that's good with hardware and that has that deeper knowledge there, hardware and electricity. So maybe electrical engineer or mechanical engineer or roboticist. And yeah, basically either as a co-founder or a founding engineer. That depends a little bit on where they are in their career and their needs and also our, connection. So that's priority number one. I think with that, after that I could get pretty far. But then I think the next bit is obviously, building out the engineering team in general. And I think for this tool specifically, one thing I noticed is that distribution is really, really important. I think it's often how do you say it, undervalued with founders and early stage companies. And I've learned from Veet how important distribution is. I've also noticed that in this space, like a lot of people are looking for inspiration online. They're not always know what they want to build. So I think that's a really big opportunity for us to kind of like build a strong distribution channel around inspiring people to build certain projects. So I want to be producing videos, maybe working with creators and stuff like that. So I'd probably look for someone as well that can help me manage that part of the business too.
Why do you go that path through distribution? And you also mentioned, I think, in the one page you sent that this is the kind of like the holy path, let's say. While I would understand that you could also just go through vendors and just like in the hardware supply chain to sell through that. Why that different approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing I've learned from like studying dev tooling is that developers don't like to use anything that they are forced to use. They
Yeah.
like to use in the workplace what they would use on the weekends. So, for example, Microsoft made Copilot, kind of like a cursor-like project product. Everybody hated it, and they were like pushing to use Cursor or Cloud Code or the other things that they see in the weekends or nights or evenings. So my belief is that you need to focus on winning the masses, and that will actually be the best way to get to the B2B. It's annoying because it means that you probably need to give away a lot from your product for free and focus a lot on that kind of distribution. But I think if you want to solve a kind of a wider set of issues, that's how you do it. Yeah.
So it's more like bottom up approach.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then what kind of percentage of active users? I mean, you need to distinguish, I guess, also the engineers, like the professionals versus the hobbyists, right? What kind
Yeah.
of percentage do you expect here? Or how do you make sure you reach the people that actually use it day to day?
Yeah, I think the truth is that I can't give you a percentage, but I can
Yeah.
tell you a little bit about what I've seen so far, which is that people are looking at the same stuff. So like what makers use and what electricians or not, like more like electrical engineers are excited about.
Mm.
They all kind of share the same cool projects. So this like last few weeks, a lot of people have been very excited about embedding CloudBot in
Mm.
hardware and things like that. So in those communities, those types of projects get shared. So through the maker community and things like that, you will also reach those people. And that's also
Mhm.
what I've noticed myself with the usage and the feedback I've gotten so far. I would say the majority is more consumer, but there is definitely a significant percentage of like electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, aerospace, defense, all sorts of things. And I think it will kind of develop like that. Yeah.
And what's the when we speak about that, like staying with the users, what's kind
Yeah.
of like the aha moment, that converts them, or do you expect, because I don't think you converted yet, but that gets them to conversion, also
For
in
those
daily
more
usage?
B2B users?
Yes.
Yeah, so what gave me a lot of conviction was when I was speaking to engineers that were talking about like prototyping and internal tools for these types of things. So, for example, I spoke to an engineer at Tesla, and he was telling me like when they designed the car,
Mm-hmm.
like when you design the engine or the way the steering works, of course you're not going to use my tool. You're going to invite the best chip designers in the world to build something bespoke that can go on millions of cars, energy efficient, secure, certificates, you name it. That won't change all of a sudden. However, while they're building those cars, they're building all sorts of hardware devices to test the cars. For example, a machine that opens all doors at the same time. If they want to do that right now, they need to have that talent that builds those crazy chips, build those things. So that's a huge distraction. Every
Mm.
month or every week it takes, I don't know how much that costs at Tesla, but hardware is extremely expensive to develop. So anything that accelerates the dev cycle there really helps. So he was like, oh, I would immediately use this for like those kind of like less high stakes projects where we might need one or two builds of the same project, not a very high skill project, but definitely part of their manufacturing process. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where the foot in the door is, like prototyping or like internal tools for hardware. And then I think where we'll see where it ends up. Like I think there's two theories here. One is like we'll move even more up market. And the other one is that the market actually changes because over the next 10 years, I think, well, you've seen it. You're funding tons of robotic startups. That was very different a few years ago. And I think a lot more people are going to enter that place. And I think the way we're building hardware is going to change a lot as well. I think that, for example, in tech, in software, nobody writes assembly code anymore. Like most people that call themselves software engineers have never written assembly code. Where in hardware, most people that build hardware, they need to make their own custom PCBs and those types of things. I think that might shift a little bit as well, and my tool could be a very interesting player in that field.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah, sorry, just a little bit to understand the tech a bit more. A few questions on that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, do you then use specific platforms for training, like Arduino, for instance? You probably know
Mm.
that. Or is that already too basic for you? And how does the tech stack look like overall?
Yeah, right now I basically build on top of those types of architectures. So Arduino, ESP32, and Pi. The reason is that like most of like the non kind of custom high scale projects use either of those architectures. Um, Eventually, I also want to enable users to build and use custom PCBs. But right now, yeah, that was not part of the initial scope. But I definitely, I've been one of the PCB factories wants to actually co-invest as well, and they were very interested because they notice how like their customers are like Apple and Google and Tesla and Meta, and they often use like one or two. They do like very small scale PCB stuff in as part of their development cycles, and they see a lot of value here. Yeah.
Okay. So then how much training data do you need, or do you need any? Is it just about the prompting?
Right now, I'm just using Claude Code in the background, but with a very specific set of pre-prompts and sequencing. And I've built like my own file type that understands how the electronics work. I think that will get me pretty far. I don't know if I need to do any custom training. There are two areas though that I think are I haven't figured out yet. One is like electricity awareness, like really making the LLM or the AI understand how electrons move throughout the circuits. That's one area. And then the other one is like, I want to do better debugging. So let's say you're doing a project and you don't know why it's not working. You can make a photo or video of it, and it can actually tell you, oh, this sensor is not calibrated, and that's why it's not working. I've done some very basic tests with that, but I think the technology that I can use out of the box is not ready yet. So I think for that we would need some special training or yeah, of sorts.
Makes sense. Cool. Julian, in interest of time, since we only have 2
Yes.
minutes left,
Yes.
what shall we focus on?
What I would focus on is a follow-up chat with you, Sam, because I think we have still lots of questions, and knowing Jessica already for quite a while, and reading her mind, I think both of us really like you, and we would like to keep the pace as said at the beginning. How does tomorrow work for you?
Let me check.
Yes, and if you let us know about some slots, we can make some room.
Yeah, check. I could potentially do tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central European time. Would that work for you?
Works for me.
Do you have alternative slots by any chance?
9:30. That's it tomorrow, to be honest.
Okay.
Then we take 9:30, Julian?
Let's take 9 then.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does 9 work for you?
Yeah, or 9:30, sorry. That's better.
9:30? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not always that complicated. Cool, perfect.
Cool.
Also,
Alright.
Sam, really love the overview. Do you have anything, or if there's anything additional you have already, please send it our way, and then we will even be quicker.
Yeah.
Or if there's any specific person you would like us to talk to, send it our way. Last but not least, what are you looking for in an investor? What should we bring?
Help. I think I'm alone now, and I think I'd love to, like, Lightspeed's great investor, great brand name, really like Antoine. But I'd love to, yeah, have people that I can work with,
Yeah.
and can help me with stuff. That's the most important bit, I think, at this stage. Yeah.
Cool. We can also speak
Cool.
about it in more concrete follow-up chat.
And maybe just one more
Awesome.
question regarding the grant, because you mentioned, you know, in the next couple of days, you want to have it sorted out. Just for
Yeah.
us, for our timeline, when would be possibilities for us to go to IC? So we always have ICs on Mondays and Thursdays. So just wondering if there is a strict deadline that you have in mind that we should be aware of.
Yeah, I'd love to actually get it through like Wednesday, to be honest. So if you have IC still today, maybe discuss it, give me which way you're leaning. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we already had IC, unfortunately.
Too bad.
It's in the morning.
Mornings, yeah. We have the next one on Thursday morning, so it's not
Yeah.
that much later than Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Could potentially bring it up then on Thursday if that works.
Yeah, let's see. Like, to be honest, like I have a lot of people in the running here, so like it's
Sure.
more me picking who I want to work with over people, convincing people. So I don't know, like if there's anything that can be worked out there, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite a convenient situation for you. Amazing.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm very lucky. I'm super lucky. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
I
Thank
sent
you, Julian and
the
Jessica.
follow-up link to the invite. Perfect.
I'll
And see you
see you
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Speak
Cheers.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.